Data to me, it means power in terms of being able to shape the people agenda. It can allow you to shape the narrative in terms of what you're trying to do. So I think data in the right hands is powerful. One of the things we just had to consciously do was actually help to manage that, in terms of relief, sensing when there's fatigue, when we have more incidents on the road as a result, to be able to avoid any dangers from a safety perspective. And it's not just safety for our people, because it's also about the community. Because, if you run over a child, if you hit a member of the public, we're responsible for all of that. Yeah,
100%.
We speak about organizations of the future are going to be skills based and no longer the traditional job description and qualifications as we have it today. But are we ready in how we're thinking then about talent in the future, where it's a skills-based organization, and maybe Njabulo is now part of a pool from a skills perspective. I'm not Njabulo, the HR director, but I'm Njabulo who has change management skill and data analytics skill, and therefore I can work in Themba's team today. Tomorrow I go and I support the HR function.
Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of the HR 360 podcast. My name is Themba and I'm your host. We are bringing to you in this episode a discussion, a very important one, around HR analytics and how HR leaders can use data to solve modern workplace challenges. Today I'm sitting with Njabulo Mashigo, the HR director at Vodacom.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you for coming through. We really appreciate your time. Can't wait to hear all about you, what you've done, how you've done it, some of your success stories. So I think just to maybe break the ice, we could start off from, have you ever seen yourself in HR? When you were growing up, remember when we were growing up in primary school, we used to get asked a lot, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
And I remember saying, I want to be a mechanical engineer, But I'm far from that, today.
Yeah.
What do you want to be when you're growing up?
I definitely didn't say I want to be in HR. So I wanted to be an actress, actually.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So very far from what I'm doing today.
Okay.
Although there's lots of drama in HR, so I can confirm that.
So So you're doing another type of acting.
Yeah, definitely.
You are doing another type of acting. When you say there's so much drama in HR, what do you mean? What type of drama are you referring to?
Well, I suppose just by virtue of being the people space, I always say wherever there are people, there's no shortage of work to do.
Okay.
So typically in an employee life cycle, you're dealing with everything from, besides onboarding and offboarding people, just their day-to-day experiences, and some of them are quite dramatic. Some painful. People go through retrenchments, people go through difficult times, but also exciting times, or day-to-day experiences with their line managers. So there's no shortage of drama in HR.
Tell us a bit about your role at Vodacom. What do you do and how do you do it?
HR director responsible for the people agenda for Vodacom South Africa.
Okay.
South Africa is one of 8 markets in the Vodacom group. So Vodacom group is the Africa region, really.
Okay.
And we are part of Vodafone, which is then the global organization. So Europe and Africa make up Vodafone. And in terms of the Vodacom group, South Africa is the largest OpCo.
Oh, is it?
So privileged to lead the people agenda for the largest market. And how do I do it? With a lot of passion. I'm happy to say, after 22 years of being in this profession, I'm still excited about it.
Okay.
And I just think because the agenda is ever evolving, there's just always something to be curious about. And some of it is what we're going to talk about today. So
100%. Sure, 22 years.
Yeah, I was a baby. I know, I still look young, I hope.
When you started, how was the HR fraternity compared to how it is today?
I was blessed to start my career in what I would consider a progressive organization, which is
Okay.
Unilever, right?
Okay.
So from that perspective, I think I wouldn't want to lie and say it was so archaic. I think I've had the reverse experience over the years. I've realized actually what an incredibly progressive environment that was. However, I think outside of my personal experience, just generally HR, it's changed a lot. I think
Okay.
from people seeing HR as being an administrative function, just about payroll, to actually understanding that the people agenda is quite broad, that HR can be a strategic partner to the business. And I think, as I say, I was fortunate to start in an organization which had that appreciation. But as I moved on to other organizations, I realized that HR was quite transactional and administrative in some respects.
Okay.
And I think over the years, I've seen it just become more strategic and valued. And I'm glad to see where it is.
All right, all right. So we are in this age of data and AI. In our organization, we interact a lot with HR leaders who are looking to leverage data for strategic decision making, empowering business outcomes, and also driving employee engagement. So I wanted to pick on your brain and maybe learn from you your approach when it comes to to data in the HR function. Maybe let's start by understanding what data means to you,
Yeah.
and also for the HR function.
Yeah, I think data to me, it means power in terms of being able to shape the people agenda. It can allow you to shape the narrative in terms
Yeah.
of what you're trying to do. So I think data in the right hands is powerful. And I suppose the right hands part is important because for data to mean anything, you have to apply insights, you have to read it, the pattern, the story that it's telling
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
and then it becomes powerful. And so for me, I feel that's one of the things I'm really grateful for in my journey. And also particularly at Vodacom is we don't have a lot of people who need convincing around the importance of data. But what we need to evolve is how we use the data, because I think there's still lots of room for it to be more to reach its full potential in terms of being sophisticated and how it helps us from an insights perspective.
Yeah.
But for me, data just means we're able to personalize experiences for our employees and also be a better partner to the business.
Okay, okay. When you say at Vodacom, you don't need so much convincing. The people understand it. What do you mean?
So already a few years ago, prior to me joining, Vodacom has been on a journey in terms of embracing digitization from an HR perspective.
Okay.
I must be honest, we still are on a continuum where on certain things, you have to still take the data, translate it into a
It's a
spreadsheet,
journey,
and it's a journey.
Yeah.
But we also have the other extreme of having, even today, a bot, which we call Super Toby, which reads policies and can be able to advise employees. So that evolution in terms of the importance of integrating data into the employee experience, line manager, self-service, how we are able to just use dashboarding. It's a journey that we've been on. And fortunately for me, in the last 3.5 years, it's been part of my agenda as well. It's a priority that I found there, and I've been given the task and the opportunity to accelerate that.
Yeah.
What does it mean for us as an HR function? How do we better our employee experience? And so that's what I mean. I think people understand conceptually the importance of data and why we focus on it the way that we do.
Yeah.
I think, though, the journey in terms of the various maybe sophistication, depending on the particular maybe people process we're talking about, I think there's opportunity for us to evolve it further. And then there's some parts where we're actually best practice and exceptional in terms of how we're already using data.
How did you guys get it right? How did you get it right in terms of getting everyone on board, getting the leadership on board, getting finance on board to invest in these initiatives to make sure that you guys are data driven as an organization?
Yeah,
Because
I think
I'm seeing there to be a challenge, for some of our potential clients that we constantly engage. We find that this type of talks could easily be because they could easily become pep talk, where yes, we've attended a conference. There was a talk around data. We know it's important. We'll We'll get to it.
Yeah.
So how did you guys ensure that, yes, you understand it's important and you committed to a plan with time frames? So this is what we're going to be doing. This is how we'll be doing it. This is when we'll be doing it. And this is the outcome that we'd like to achieve.
Yeah, so I think the journey to convincing has been through experiments and actually even developing data points about the importance of data and what it brings. So, for example, where we wanted to introduce elements around employee self-service, we had to first understand what are the most common queries that employees typically, what we call level 1 queries, where it can easily be solved, but it's a frequent type of query that an employee would have. I think I'll come back to that, but at a business level, and maybe the point around the investment, why it was not too difficult probably to convince is the fact that as a business, we are a technology business, and on the customer facing side of things, we've walked a similar path, right? Where we've seen our colleagues in customer and marketing bring in the concepts around micro-segmentation, personalizing information for customers so that we're able to solve very specific problems.
Yeah.
And so that translation in the people space, for us, it's been an inspiration to say we could actually gather enough information and insights about employees to start to personalize our offerings. And so with little experiments, solving queries, being able to play it back to those customers or to the employees in this case, and be able to show how they're able to just ask Toby a question and have a simple query resolved, it's brought in more confidence. It's brought down the level of queries that typically our HR services organization would have dealt with in the past. And so it's kind of created that appetite to say, what else could we solve and where else in the employee life cycle could we explore? Yeah.
Okay. That sounds very exciting. It sounds very exciting. And I'm sure, with what you have just explained now, you probably have touched on how you've successfully used data in your function, but any specific use case you can share with us in terms of how you guys have used data and what has that translated into?
Yeah, I think one that I'm really excited and proud of is around our driver behavior.
Okay.
So we are a 24/7 operation. I know people might see maybe just a Voda shop where you buy your airtime and data in a mall, but actually to keep the network up and running, so that the signal stays on whatever time of the day. We are a 24/7 operation. We've got engineers who drive for work. If there's a signal loss somewhere in the middle of Bushbuck Ridge, who's going to go and climb the tower and fix it? And that's just oversimplifying the issues. Obviously, the nature of the queries and the issues differ.
Yeah.
But as a result, one of the big things in terms of our employee base, we've got a large component of our organization who are part of our technology and commercial organization who drive for work. And now bringing it back to HR, one of the things that I am responsible for, accountable for, is safety, health, and well-being.
Okay.
And as part of our safety, health, and well-being organization, we actually have what we call our driver behavior analytics. And it's evolved nicely over time. So initially it was just dashboard cams, just to track the speed of the drivers. But over time we've learned that there's, life before the data and life after, where we couldn't influence certain behaviors such as driver fatigue, night driving.
Okay.
And then the usual things like, monitoring of speed, on the road. As we know, South Africa, unfortunately, is known for bad road fatalities and just generally bad behavior on the road. And so one of the things that where data and analytics have actually helped us is actually being able to, first of all, gather this data about our various drivers, be able to use it to then further kind of give more personalized feedback. To say, with Themba, it's more, is it a speed issue? And then, of course, you can, have a conversation and a coaching around the rules. But sometimes it's giving us other insights from a fatigue point of view, driver fatigue. So now we've got such good intel from a telematics perspective that we are able to have live information which says, this is unsafe because the person has maybe been driving for a certain amount of time. You can see the pattern of the cornering, the swerving. So we get a lot of intel from that perspective. And our goal is, of course, one is, our safety rule is no one gets hurt. Everyone has to get back home at the end of the day. And so to avoid major incidents and ultimately fatalities, that's one of the things that we've really found really useful.
Yeah.
We've also, of course, it can sound punitive, it's like you're catching the speedsters and whatever, but we've actually introduced also the opposite side, where we recognize even the drivers who are great drivers, and they just always in the green, if you can put it that way.
I love that.
In terms of the what we measure on our dashboards, encouraging our safety rules, in terms of just making sure, that we continue to live this culture. And, we know that people, when they feel safe and protected, they are also more productive, which is what we want at the end of the day. And even issues of fatigue, especially when we had at the height of load shedding, because what people might not know or appreciate is that we actually run the network on electricity. So in the absence of electricity, then we have backup power, and during the height of load shedding, where the network would cut or there'd be disturbances as a result, we would have to have more people on the road who have to have contingency plans, either because they've got the mobile diesel unit which has to compensate for the network and the running of the electricity. As a result, from a fatigue perspective, you'd have much more driver fatigue. Because people are on the road having to patch up where things might be getting cut off. One of the things we just had to consciously do was actually help to manage that, in terms of relief, sensing when there's fatigue, when we have more incidents on the road as a result, to be able to avoid any dangers from a safety perspective. And it's not just safety for our people, because it's also about the community.
Yes,
because if you run over a child, if you hit a member of the public, we're responsible for all of that. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying, especially around how you guys at Vodacom use data to identify, I don't want to call it good versus bad drivers, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But I mean, identifying those dynamics, right? And the fatigue issue, it sounds to me like a wellness issue as well, in terms of, tracking employee wellness.
Yeah.
I can understand how to track overspeeding, right? Because there's a speed limit. But how do you guys go about identifying fatigue issues?
Yeah.
Is it based on the number of hours you see me, actively working? Is it?
Yeah. So partly it's the time. So time on the road.
Okay.
So as in it will be, so that equals to the amount of time. But there's also the patterns itself around the driver behavior. So I'm not the expert on it, but we work with, I'm going to say the wrong company, but we work with an analytics company.
Okay,
Let me
sure.
not say the name.
No, yeah, it's fine.
In case I quote a different partner to the one we had previously.
It's fine.
But the point is, we actually have experts who are meant to be able to see if they see start-stop patterns, swerving of the car. And that's why I also referred to cornering, like literally how you take the corner when you turn.
Okay.
So there'll be other driver behaviors which, as per their guidance from a metrics perspective, would say this would typically tell us that there's an issue. We even work, for example, with the likes of Tracker, and not just for the sake of tracking the vehicles, but also to study the driver, the patterns. And they, based on their science and their knowledge, they're also able to give us insights and reports and say, this is typically when there's fatigue. But of course, there's also interventions. I can ask you, so Themba, you've been flagged 3 times. Are you okay? How long have you been driving? And that's also what we would like for the line managers to do. So the report doesn't maybe tell the full story, but it's an indicator in some instances where we then can have the actual conversation with the employee to check if they're fine, and if things are fine from a well-being perspective. For line managers of people who typically drive for work, we also have what we call journey map planning.
Okay.
So normally also the JMPs will tell you a story. So we know if there's a technician who must go to Gqeberha and it's rural part, yes, there's quite a distance to drive, maybe from one site to the next site, but in a journey map or planning process, you would then build in and say, actually, you have to sleep over in this small town and then pick up the journey in the morning. And so from a JMP perspective, that's another data insights where sometimes where we've had incidents and you look at the JMP, you can see the person maybe tried to just drive through the night to try and get there, or they didn't have enough of a rest period. Maybe they rested for 3 hours and not an actual night's sleep, whatever that would equate to, you know. So we take it quite seriously, as you can hear.
I can hear that, yeah.
It's a big issue. I mean, you know, sometimes a small thing like bees on a mast. So, you know, the big towers that you see, which enable us to have the network, where before a technician can go and deal with the issue on the mast, we need to work with then partners from bee removals who are going to make sure that we are safe. So we do need insights and data on things like that, where you can't predict everything that can happen in nature, but you typically have a sense of, in these type of areas, these could be the dangers, and therefore we need to take different precautions, because our goal is always nobody gets hurt. And as much as we can avoid that, we try to do that, yeah.
So since you guys started being, you know, more serious, since Vodacom has become more serious in the use of data in terms of understanding, you know, workplace issues, employee issues, productivity matters, and all this type of things, I want to ask you this question. I don't know if you're able to answer or you're allowed to answer, but can you say this has helped you guys save some money? And if yes, in which areas were you? Which areas were you burning cash unnecessarily, and that area, since you've started using data, you were then able to start saving that unnecessary cost.
Yeah,
is an area that you can that you can
yeah.
maybe.
I'm thinking recruitment, but I'm also thinking about actually also related to well-being.
Okay, well-being.
One of the things that we actually have now. So, you know, the old ICAS, it's now called LIRA. Some people know ICAS. It's an employee assistance program, which is now, I think they've been bought over by a company called LIRA. But anyway, LIRA has always had good insights in terms of, you know, employees who will call and ask for help on whatever issues. So it's a counseling, coaching kind of service. What we found with the better use of analytics, and also with the partnership with Lira, who have better dashboards in terms of, you know, we've always had anonymous lines which people can call and say, you know, my line manager is abusing me, or my husband at home is stressing me, whatever your reason is to get the assistance. Because they now have a better system of capturing information in terms of when employees engage with the service, we've been able to more tailor and personalize the interventions that we have from a well-being point of view. And so just linking it back to your question around, you know, has it really saved us money? I think sometimes because employee issues can be so broad, you know, you want to invest in legal support, financial support, this and this and that. But with the data that we've been able to get now, through the dashboards that come through the ICAS and LIRA service, we've been able to now personalize the interventions.
Okay.
So we have what are the top 3, top 5 presenting issues. For example, a big issue at the moment is around financial well-being. People going through legal issues as a result of financial issues.
Yes.
And then personal relationships. And so we've been able to tailor our well-being efforts towards saying, how do we have coaching specifically around those particular issues, rather than maybe having a broader suite which tries to capture all the things that could possibly be affecting employees. But we've managed to, because we also have, like everybody, everybody's under pressure in terms of their budgets. We've had to cut down our budgets, but we are able to do more because we are able to be more concise in terms and specific about what the issues are. You know, now we know also around bonus times, 2-3 months before, how do we bring in the right financial coaching to help people to be able to make better choices, which is one of the examples. In terms of our occupational health practitioners as well, we do work with doctors, but also knowing the right doctors to bring on board has helped us to then decide who not to invest in. And so from a savings perspective, it's been a matter of, even though budgets are shrinking, it's reprioritizing to still be able to give a service which is of a particular standard, to be able to make sure that our employees can show up. Yeah, that's one that I can think of. And then I think recruitment, I'll try and squeeze it in. But our biggest
Sure.
saving has really been with what is traditionally a lot of, I think, HR leaders will know that in recruitment, you do spend a lot on placements. So, and in the past, it used to be through recruitment agencies. I know, let me look at the recruitment agencies. They don't like me very much at the moment because I get a lot of calls to say, can we do recruitment for you? I said, no. So we've got an in-house recruitment service now. And there's been a lot. We've saved millions just in terms of one, having a system like Eightfold, which helps. It's got an element of AI in it. So in terms of people being able to populate their information, it filters for us based on the skills that we're recruiting for. Bringing then the recruitment service in-house, so that we don't have to rely too much on external agencies. That saved us a lot of money. And then our ultimate goal, we're not there yet, is to integrate our systems. So we've got a great AI system in the form of Eightfold. On the recruitment side, we also have what we call Grow My Learning, Grow My Impact platform. And how do you integrate these from a skills perspective? Because it's storing information that's telling you something about the skills base of the people that you're bringing in. How does it translate it to gaps for development purposes? And how does it link to your learning programs, which are also in a system which could allow for that integration over time? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and save money, hopefully. And time, definitely.
And time, yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys have got everything figured out.
No.
What do you struggle with? What keeps you up at night now? Like, what's your problem?
Yeah. Well, like everybody else, I'm like, Gen AI, you know? But it doesn't keep me awake from a nerves perspective. I think it's exciting. But I think it's how are we going to do it in a way that's ethically acceptable. People are nervous about it. Of course, for issues like, your POPI Act and personal information of people.
Yes.
You don't want just anything or systems that can access just anything. We are part of a bigger organization, Vodafone, and both at a Vodacom and a Vodafone level. We're also quite strict in terms of our governance generally on data and things like that. And so having to translate that into the people space is how can we have more personalized experiences that talk to, if Themba is a single dad and he has these and these kinds of needs, how can we get to that type of smooth employee experience where he feels seen and he feels like, wow, this EVP is talking to me, and it's not a generic thing that says let's together we can. But what does it mean for Themba? What does it mean for Njabulo? And so I think for us, that's the journey. How can we become better at segmenting our propositions for our different types of employees?
Okay.
One of the things we are experimenting with in South Africa is youth, women, and technology skills. So those three segments, could we have one day if a real employer brand and an EVP that's targeted to the youth, where they will see that, okay, this is my organization, I can relate to it. What's important for women? We've done also a good exercise from a data point of view to document what are the lived experiences of women at Vodacom. And now we know the good, the bad, the ugly about it. What do they want? But how do we translate that into the employee experience? So there's lots that keeps me awake. We definitely don't have it figured out, but I think what we have is an appetite for just to be curious. You go to the benefits people, you say you can't just give the youth a pay slip like you normally do. They need a menu of benefits. People don't want to pay for pension. That's controversial. I'm always like, people must have a backup. You must have medical aid. But is that a proposition that works for the youth? And so it's just about experimenting and kind of cracking the traditional, this is how
just dream.
Payroll works. Everybody gets the same pay slip. Why can't we have three different types that talk to different people,
No, it's true.
And
it's
different
true.
propositions that talk to them,
Yeah, because it's important to dream just around, innovation. New ways of doing things, exciting ways, of doing things, all this type of. I'm so glad you touched on AI being something that keeps you up at night, but not from I am nervous, point of things, but to I'm curious.
Yeah.
You're asking questions.
Yes.
How best can we use this technology?
Yeah.
How can it best serve our people?
Yeah.
Do you think the HR function in general is ready for AI? Not necessarily at Vodacom.
Yeah,
But I mean,
that's why I'm smiling because I think broader HR function, just if I listen to the discourse and the noise just around the fraternity, I think people are nervous.
Okay.
I don't think people are completely ready. And as an HR community in general, I think
Yes,
we're
yes.
on a continuum where on the one extreme, you find people who are still trying to get things onto the spreadsheet, and then there's the dreamers who want to have whatever, an entire
systems,
HR function, on a click of a
automated.
button, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite broad, but I think there's curiosity, and people are being open even where they are nervous to say, what does it mean, this interaction? So I don't know. I think as an HR community, it's a mixed views. If I bring it closer to Vodacom, I think curious would be the word. But also we are at different levels in terms of because it requires an element of vulnerability as well, not knowing, not having all the answers.
Okay, that's a good point.
And I think sometimes that does take us out of our comfort zone because people see HR as, we are the rule book, and for some HR people as well, it's like, people want to say, policy number 13, section 14 says, but
Yeah,
people can
yeah.
read. Now bots can even read your policy. So what is the value add as an HR person if it's not to read the policy to you? Is it about advising you and now stepping more into your shoes as the business, translating it to what it could mean for people? And that's a vulnerable space because it's a space of not knowing. It's hand-holding your business partner instead of telling them how it will be, but saying, I don't know, but let's find out, and
Yes,
exploring
yes.
together. And I think that requires a shift from a mindset perspective because we are experimenting. The experiment might not work. And also,
which is fine.
Yeah, and
Which is
maybe
fine.
you open to it, but is my partner, my customer open to it because they could be like, HR must know, don't waste my time. Or you could also have a business which is also saying, yeah, let's explore, let's simplify this experience for our people, for our teams. And so it requires that vulnerability, I think, to explore a different way. Yeah.
Okay, that's a very interesting answer.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting answer. What will be your advice then for the HR leader who's still in doubt about the possibilities of AI?
Yeah.
What will be your message
Yeah.
to that HR leader, to the HR community, and what questions do you think they should start asking themselves to be ready, for this new wave of innovation and technology that AI brings?
Yeah, I think it's time for us to be open to the change.
Yeah.
It's definitely a vulnerable space. And I think for me, one of the things that could work for us as an HR community is to collaborate with each other. I think we are fully in the world where actually people win through helping each other.
Yeah.
And I think if you're still thinking of just solving your organization's issues in your corner or just as your organization, it could be a missed opportunity. So I think maybe partnership. So if there's an organization that is maybe advanced on a particular process or area, how about partnering and learning from them? So my
Yes,
advice
yes.
would be, be open to experiment.
Yeah.
And experiments, unfortunately, do come with failure sometimes. So also
Learning
and it's
lessons,
about
yeah.
learning and,
Yeah.
and how to perfect some of those things as you go. That would really be my advice.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to be naughty and ask you the following question.
Yes.
What else would you like to use AI for in your business at Vodacom? I know you talked about how you are using this bot,
Yeah.
where you've thrown in all the the policies, and employees can then interact with that chat bot in there.
Yeah.
To possibly ask policy related types of questions.
Yeah.
What else would you like to use AI for?
Yeah. If it could just make some of the headaches go away in terms of just difficulties. Dealing with people is not always easy.
Yeah.
You wish the bot could just sit in for you or AI could just answer all the queries. But the truth is, I think, and this is also why HR people shouldn't be scared. I think the human interaction is always going to be important.
It's very important.
And we are always going to have to bring the human lens to the technology. And so I'm just hoping for me that AI helps us to just simplify things. I think we make things unnecessarily complex generally as HR people. With good intentions.
Yeah.
So I'm just hoping it's going to just help us to simplify the employee experience, line managers experience, help us to be a solutions partner to the business. So for me, that's really what I'm looking for, because that's where the business is. That's what people want from HR.
So to make it more practical, what is that one thing for you guys at Vodacom that you can say it was complicated and possibly through the use of data and AI we've simplified it?
Yeah.
Is there one thing that you can share? And maybe you've shared it already.
Yeah, maybe part of it. One of the examples was that reference to from the health and safety perspective.
Okay, so that was
driver behavior. Reducing road incidents. That's certainly a practical one that we've applied it.
Yeah.
I referred to recruitment. As well. So I think we are looking for more still on the query management. What are the things that typically people would come to HR and try to solve? I mean, we've got an amazing app actually called Engage app.
Okay.
And we want that to continue to be the one-stop shop. So on Engage, people get everything from their pay slips, total reward statement. You can report a network fault to say, I was driving under a bridge in Midrand and my call cut. And you can actually on-engage because you're part of Vodacom and you're helping the business.
Oh,
and you
I
say,
see.
bridge number, whatever, on this road, faulty, dropped calls.
No coverage.
No coverage.
Okay.
And those kind of things, we just really want to live in this technology space and make it part of our everyday reality.
So I like what you're saying around, complicating things in HR especially, and I'm interested, for you guys at Vodacom, you talked about how you've simplified the recruitment, how you've simplified possibly understanding, driver behavior and all those type of things. But what else are you seeing HR leaders complicate out there, which could easily be simplified using data and possibly AI?
Yeah, so one of the things I'm learning in Vodacom, we speak about customer journeys.
Yeah.
So a typical customer journey is, what does it take for Themba to get a contract with Vodacom?
Okay.
And then we sit with the business would sit, the commercial leaders, the technology leaders, and we say, you have to fill in a 20-page form that's asking you your blood type and your ID and whatever. Is all of this necessary, etc., etc.? And that analogy from a customer journey point of view, if you now fast forward and you bring it into the employee experience, for us, we've said how many of our employee experience journeys could just be made simple. So I just want to update my beneficiaries. One of the reasons people, and this is actually a good example where I joined Vodacom during COVID, and unfortunately, as we know, people were dying. And some people have never updated their beneficiary form since when they joined 15 years ago. And I think the intention is always to do it, but you have to go to HR probably and ask for a form, etc. But just a simple thing like bringing a beneficiaries update onto the Engage app that I was referring to.
Okay.
Now it's literally a click away to say, maybe my child is over 18 now.
You can do it anytime,
no
anyway.
longer, whatever. Like, you want to remove whatever. You got divorced, you want to remove your spouse, whatever. It's now literally at a click of a button. So by exploring our employee journeys, and from the lens of the employee, not as HR, because also it's not about making life easy for HR. It's about making the employee experience smooth. It's about making the line manager experience smooth. For us, we've changed a lot because we no longer say, how do I avoid 10 steps as an HR person to click here and here and there? And we're saying, how does Themba feel as an employee having to just update his, his life and tell us about his beneficiaries? How do we simplify things? So we've done that across multiple journeys. Our onboarding process, how do we simplify your being here? So candidate management before you arrive on campus the first time. How do we make sure that you're already registered on Engage, you're able to access things, read up on the organization, all on your mobile or whatever device that you're using.
Yeah.
And asking the feedback from the employees and the managers, not from each other, as let's high five each other, we built the system. No. It's about the user. Does the user feel like they just have a better experience because you've now put, or did you just put a tile on the app, but it's still the same difficult process just on a phone? Or actually, have you simplified my experience because it literally is one click and I'm able to get what I'm looking for? So that's part of what we will also learn from the business, the customer journey, bring it into the employee journey, and actually treat them like a customer and actually say, how was that? And is it a better process? Yeah.
Okay. Top HR priorities for 2025 and beyond?
Well-being.
Well-being.
Well-being is a big one.
Would you put well-being at number one?
I would put well-being at number one.
Okay.
And simply because the well-being issues are so many. I think as much as, we'll talk about the economy and the macro issues, all of that lends on people. And it's manifesting in different ways: mental health issues, people facing burnout, people having financial issues, which lead to legal issues, which lead to physical manifestations. All of that is quite important. So from a well-being point of view, I think all of us as practitioners, we need to be thinking about, even with this conversation around data and technology, how we're using data, technology, insights we get about our employees to actually help them with a better employee experience. We can't solve all the world's issues, but we can try to sense what the issues are and try to propose solutions. Definitely, this conversation around data and technology. Technology is not going anywhere. It's about how do we embrace it. For me, a second priority is for us as an HR organization to always be measuring ourselves and say, where are we on the technology journey? What can we improve? How do we revisit processes that maybe we've already implemented? Are they working from an employee experience, from a line manager experience perspective? To enable us to just be more savvy in how we engage. And then lastly, talent management. Talent issues are not going anywhere. I think, if anything, the talent agenda is evolving. So we've gone past the story about the war for talent. We know talent vote with their feet. Talent decides where talent goes, not companies. But how do we start to acknowledge that the power dynamics have shifted and bring ourselves closer to really talking differently to talent in terms of saying, how do I create a different experience for you? We speak about organizations of the future are going to be skills-based and no longer the traditional job description and qualifications as we have it today. But are we ready in how we're thinking then about talent in the future, where it's a skills-based organization, and maybe Njabulo is now part of a pool from a skills perspective. I'm not Njabulo, the HR director, but I'm Njabulo who has change management skill and data analytics skill, and therefore I can work in Themba's team today. Tomorrow I go and I support the HR function. That's fundamentally different from you are employee number one bani and you sit in this business unit and you belong to HR. Maybe now you belong to the organization, and we haven't fully grasped that, but it's something that we need to think about.
That's a very important one. How are you ensuring that, at Vodacom, in terms of future skills? How are you doing that?
For a number of years already, we've identified what we believe are our future capabilities. And our entire skills transformation agenda is based around that. Skills of the future. When you talk about machine learning, whether you're talking about big data, whatever the skills of the future are, software engineering, how are we building? Because one of our priorities is we want to bring people along on the journey. Can everybody transition from their current skill set to the future skills? The answer is people can, but to what extent? And so we've built what we call academies and accelerators across those various skills. So, one based on cloud, one based on fintech skills, and helping our employees to not just get certification in those skills, but actually become practitioners. And so we're working a lot with our business leaders to say, okay, here's Njabulo, she's done a certificate in IoT. Can she be a practitioner today? Nope, because she needs XYZ to actually become more practical. And how are we accelerating and helping our employees with that? And then, of course, there's the good old-fashioned going to the market and buying that talent. But there is a limited pool generally because we're all fishing in the same pond for technology skills. And so the big agenda is actually about building and trying to transform the people that you can transform to help them to be future ready. Yeah.
But what you guys are doing at Vodacom is quite impressive.
Thank you.
It's really, really impressive. So I'm listening to this as an HR leader. Where do I start? I'm talking on behalf of our viewers now.
Yes.
You know, someone is listening to this and they're liking everything that we're talking about now. But the question is, where do we start?
For me,
Maybe want to become like you guys. When I get to where you guys are,
yeah.
How does the journey look like?
I think the first point is taking stock. So where are we today?
Yeah.
That is important. And what I mean by that is just have an appreciation of what are the skill sets that we have today.
Yeah.
And then relative to the skills of the future. Now, obviously, every industry will differ in terms of what they consider to be skills of the future.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's about plotting the journey in terms of the gap. I suppose in short, that really is what strategy is. We all have that ambition, what we want to be versus the reality of where we are, and then plotting that journey.
Yeah.
I think that plotting of that journey is where maybe it becomes contextual because, is it about partnering with the Vodacom, or is it something that we first need to build ourselves internally? You do need the support of the business. So I'd also say another part of besides taking stock and setting the ambition, is make sure that ambition is very much embedded in the business. So it's not HR for HR's sake. It's about HR partnering with the business. And so a big part of it is going to have to be about that. It's going to be about when we've workshopped with the business about who we want to be as a business in the future, how do we translate that into the people agenda?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, final thoughts? Please look into this camera. Share with our guests anything you'd like them to start thinking about, start implementing, and your advice, basically.
Yeah, I think my advice would be open to learn. Data is your friend. And as I've highlighted in the beginning, data in the right hands is powerful. And I think we need to determine for ourselves what that means. So what are we trying to solve? What's our narrative in terms of maybe the people agenda, the story that we're trying to, or the employee experience rather, that we're trying to build for the organization. But I would say for me, data is your friend. It gives you lots of insights to allow you to personalize the offerings that you want to bring into the organization.
Okay. Njabulo, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think there's so much which we would still like to chat to you about. So hopefully this is not the first and last time we have you on the podcast. But for today,
thank you.
That was so amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the HR 360 podcast. I'm sitting with my guest Njabulo Mashigo, HR director at Vodacom. We delved into the potential of analytics and how HR leaders can use data to solve modern workplace challenges. Hope you found value from today's episode. Looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Just for now. Thanks.
Thank you.